Okay, so you sent over a collection of sources for us on magic and superstition in early modern Europe.
Yeah,
And it's a fascinating mix.
right.
We've got excerpts from this academic text, Superstition and Magic in Early Modern Europe, alongside a collection of woodcut images.
Ah,
We're talking demons, witches, alchemists.
yeah, it's like a visual time capsule of fears and beliefs from that era.
It is. It really is. It's like you open up this book and you're right back
You're
there.
right there. And, it's fascinating because we often think of this era as the dawn of scientific thinking.
Right.
But as these sources illustrate, magic and daily life were still very deeply intertwined.
Yeah, that's so true. We often compartmentalize history, but this era was clearly like a melting pot of ideas.
It really was.
Yeah. So our mission in this deep dive is to explore how magic and superstition were woven into the fabric of everyday life during this era.
Okay.
What did people fear? How did they use magic? And how did all of this connect to the sweeping changes of the time? Big questions.
Huge questions. Well, I think an excellent starting point is to remember that early modern Europe was a world in transition.
Okay.
You had the blossoming of the Renaissance, the upheaval of the Reformation.
Right.
And yet, for ordinary people, life was still incredibly precarious.
Yeah.
Disease, famine, war. These were constant threats, and this left people searching for ways to understand and control their circumstances.
Yeah, it makes sense that people might cling to traditional beliefs or practices that promised some semblance of control over their lives in that environment. It's interesting, though, the sources highlight how blurred the lines between magic and religion actually were.
That's a really, really key point, because
Yeah.
back then, prayer was, in a sense, considered a form of magic,
Okay.
an attempt to influence the world through words and rituals.
Right.
The church promoted what they called divine magic,
Uh-huh.
miracles, blessings, invoking the power of God. But then there's this whole other realm of demonic magic.
Right.
And that's where things get really complex.
Because that's where we venture into the realm of witchcraft, right? Like these woodcut images are intense.
Oh, they're so evocative.
Yeah. One depicts a witch brewing a potion with a skull and a toad, while another shows these demons swarming a woman while she sleeps.
Oh, yeah.
It begs the question, what exactly were people hoping to achieve through these magical practices?
I think it's important to remember that life, for many, was just a constant struggle against very real threats.
Right.
Illness, accidents, crop failure.
Yeah.
Magic, in many ways, offered a sense of agency, a way to potentially tip the scales in one's favor.
So rather than just viewing magic as superstitious mumbo-jumbo, we need to see it as a means of trying to solve real problems.
Exactly. Think about it. Imagine a world without modern medicine.
Right.
You fall ill.
Yeah.
You might turn to a healer who used herbs, but also charms and incantations, believing they enhance the remedies.
Right.
Love charms, protective amulets.
Uh-huh.
These weren't just trinkets. They represented very real attempts to influence the course of life, love, and fortune.
Looking at this woodcut image of a farmer wearing a wolf's tooth necklace, it seems like the early modern equivalent of carrying a lucky rabbit's foot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's making me think about the source material in a different way.
Yeah.
Instead of simply offering solutions, magic provided a sense of control over otherwise unpredictable circumstances.
That's a keen observation.
Yeah.
These practices, while seemingly separate from religion or science, were fundamentally intertwined with the very fabric of their lives.
Right.
To truly understand early modern Europeans, we must understand this worldview.
Yeah. It's fascinating how those in power, like the church, navigated this, though.
Yeah.
We've got the Malleus Maleficarum, a 15th century text, that essentially served as a guidebook for identifying and persecuting witches, right? Highlighting a clear condemnation of certain magical practices. But then we also see evidence of people openly consulting cunning folk, using charms, and seeking guidance from astrologers. How do we reconcile those two things?
It speaks to a complex power dynamic,
Right.
a balancing act between maintaining authority and acknowledging the ingrained role of traditional beliefs in people's lives.
Right.
The church couldn't simply eradicate centuries of tradition overnight.
Right.
They drew a line in the sand, denouncing some practices as heretical while tolerating others as long as they didn't threaten their overall power or social stability.
Yeah. It seems like those lines were constantly shifting depending on various factors, perhaps political or social climates.
Uh-huh.
For example, during times of widespread fear, like Black Death, tolerance for magic probably decreased as people desperately sought explanations or scapegoats.
You're exactly right. The position of that line was fluid, influenced by the ever-changing historical and social landscape.
Yeah, okay, so we've got religious condemnation on one hand and pragmatic tolerance on the other.
Right.
But what about the rise of science?
Yeah.
How did this new way of thinking about the world start to affect beliefs in magic?
Well, the emergence of what we call the scientific revolution didn't instantly sweep away magical beliefs. The process was much more gradual. Remember, even figures like Isaac Newton were deeply interested in alchemy, which was considered a form of magic at the time.
Wow.
So it wasn't an either situation. Instead, we see science and magic coexisting
Okay.
and even informing each other.
So while some people were embracing new scientific ideas, others were still holding on to those traditional beliefs and practices.
Absolutely, then.
It makes me think of how we still have those knock on wood or lucky socks kind of things in our lives today.
Exactly.
Old habits die hard.
They really do. Change never happens overnight.
Yeah.
As scientific methods became more prominent, the appeal of magical explanations, at least among the educated elite, began to wane. And of course, the printing press also played a crucial role, democratizing knowledge and allowing new ideas to spread more rapidly.
Right.
However, in many parts of Europe, particularly rural areas where traditional ways of life remained strong, belief in magic persisted well into the 18th century.
So we often think of progress as this straight line, but it seems like different parts of society were moving at different speeds on different trajectories.
Exactly. And it emphasizes the importance of nuance when studying the past.
Yeah.
It was an intricate tapestry of diverse experiences, beliefs, and practices. And in early modern Europe, the relationship between magic, superstition, and society was incredibly complex and constantly evolving.
Okay, so we've got this fascinating backdrop of shifting religious authority, emerging scientific thought, and people clinging to tradition amidst all this change. But let's zoom in a bit.
Okay.
These sources also highlight the various figures who are perceived as wielding this power, cunning folk, witches, and alchemists. What can we learn about them?
Well, the sources offer a diverse picture.
Okay.
Cunning folk, for instance, were often seen as local healers.
Okay.
Figures with knowledge passed down through generations.
Yeah.
They were the go-to people for everyday problems, using herbs, charms, and rituals to address ailments, offer protection, or even tell fortunes.
So less about conjuring demons and more about, say, soothing a toothache or helping with difficult childbirth.
Precisely. But it's important to remember that the line between natural and supernatural was blurred back then.
Okay.
Even a simple herbal remedy might be accompanied by a charm or a whispered prayer for added potency.
This woodcut image really brings that to life.
Oh, yeah?
It shows a cunning woman treating a sick child, and the parents look more worried than afraid. It suggests they trust her knowledge and skill. There's no spooky vibe here, just a woman using her expertise to help a family in need.
Right.
It speaks to a deeper understanding of the natural world and perhaps a belief in harnessing those forces for good.
That's a great observation. The cunning folk, unlike figures like witches, were often respected members of their community. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the figure of the witch.
Right.
Which is obviously far more complex and viewed very negatively.
And those woodcut images definitely play into that fear.
Oh, absolutely.
One depicts a coven of witches dancing around a bonfire, with this looming grotesque demon in the background. There's definitely a more sinister feel there, playing into anxieties about the potential for magic to be used for harmful purposes.
Right. Those images really powerfully demonstrate the fear and anxiety surrounding witchcraft.
Right.
The witch, unlike the cunning folk, operated outside of societal norms, often associated with demonic magic, heresy, and a threat to the established order.
So while cunning folk might have been tolerated, even sought out, witches were ostracized and persecuted.
Unfortunately, that was often the case.
Right.
The witch hunts, fueled by texts like the Malleus Maleficarum, led to the death of countless individuals accused of witchcraft. As we discussed earlier, these accusations were often rooted in social anxieties, economic tensions, and even personal vendettas.
It's a chilling reminder of how quickly fear and suspicion can be weaponized against vulnerable members of society.
Absolutely. And, somewhere between the cunning folk and the feared witches, we find the alchemists. These individuals were captivated by the mysteries of matter, transformation, and the pursuit of knowledge.
Right.
experimenting with metals, elements, and substances, trying to unlock the secrets of the natural world.
One woodcut shows an alchemist in his lab surrounded by flasks, tubes, and billowing smoke.
Oh, yeah.
It's giving off serious mad scientist vibes.
It really is. I mean, their methods might seem unorthodox by today's standards, but their pursuit of knowledge was very serious.
Right.
They were attempting to unravel the mysteries of life and death, understand the fundamental building blocks of the universe. And in that pursuit, they often employed techniques that straddled the line between science and magic.
Trying to turn lead into gold, for example, was a classic alchemist goal.
Exactly. It might sound like fantasy to us,
Right.
but it reflects a belief in the transformative power of nature.
Okay.
The alchemists believed that through careful experimentation and manipulation, they could unlock the hidden potential of matter.
So even though we might see alchemy as a precursor to modern chemistry, it was still firmly rooted in that magical worldview of the time.
Precisely. And that's what makes this era so fascinating.
Yeah.
It was a time of great transition,
Yeah.
with traditional beliefs and emerging scientific ideas coexisting, sometimes in uneasy harmony.
We've got cunning folk, witches, alchemists,
Right.
all navigating this world where magic was a potent force. It makes you wonder, how did ordinary people make sense of it all?
Yeah.
How did they decide who to trust, who to fear, when magic was such a part of daily life?
It's a great question that gets to the heart of how humans navigate uncertainty.
Yeah.
In a world filled with unknowns, they relied on tradition, personal experience, and community knowledge to guide their choices.
Right.
There wasn't a set rule book for dealing with magic and superstition.
Right.
It was about navigating a complex web of beliefs and practices.
So it wasn't about blindly accepting every spell or fearing every odd occurrence.
Right.
There was a process of understanding and discernment involved.
Absolutely. And that highlights a valuable lesson for us today.
Okay.
In a world overflowing with information, it's crucial to cultivate those same critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
To evaluate sources carefully and be open to different perspectives.
Which is exactly what we're doing here, right?
That's right.
Digging into the evidence, exploring those multiple perspectives, trying to understand this fascinating world where magic held such a powerful sway.
We've begun to unpack the anxieties and fears that fueled belief in magic, met the diverse figures who practiced it,
Right.
but there's still so much to uncover.
Yeah.
Let's dive deeper into the methods they employed, the tools and rituals used to harness magical power.
Sounds like things are about to get even more intriguing.
I think so.
Let's unpack those magical toolkits.
You know, it's interesting how these sources, particularly the woodcuts, offer us a glimpse into the actual materials and tools used in magical practices.
Yeah.
We see herbs, candles, animal parts,
Right.
alongside more specialized tools like astrolabes and talismans. And then there are the grimoires.
Grimoires, those are like magical textbooks, right?
Exactly.
I'm picturing something bound in leather with strange symbols and cryptic writing, almost like a spell book from a fantasy novel.
That's a pretty accurate picture.
Yeah.
Grimoires were collections of spells, rituals, and incantations, often passed down through families or secret societies.
Wow.
They were a guide to navigating the world of magic, though deciphering their contents was a challenge in itself.
I bet. This one woodcut seems to show a group huddled around a table, intently studying a large book. It looks like they're trying to decode a tricky spell or ritual.
Oh, yeah.
It makes me wonder, was magic always a solitary practice, or were there communal aspects as well?
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
Magic wasn't always a solitary pursuit.
Okay.
That woodcut you described illustrates the communal aspect, with people gathering to share knowledge, perform rituals, or seek guidance from more experienced practitioners.
So it wasn't always a lone witch in the woods stirring a cauldron.
Not necessarily.
It seems like magic could also be a social activity, a way to connect and build community.
Absolutely. That communal aspect is important because it reminds us that magic and superstition weren't simply about individual belief.
Right.
They were also about social cohesion, shared rituals, and a sense of belonging, particularly in a world where so many things were outside of their control.
Speaking of control, earlier we talked about how magic provided people with a sense of agency in unpredictable circumstances.
Right.
But diving into these methods, the materials, the specific actions involved, it seems like it was about so much more than just wishing for something to happen.
Yeah.
There was real effort and intention involved.
You're absolutely right. Let's take herbalism, for example.
Okay.
Plants were believed to possess inherent powers, and cunning folk and healers carefully selected and prepared them for specific purposes. It wasn't random.
Right.
They were using generations of knowledge and observation.
There's an image here of a woman meticulously drying herbs in her attic. It looks like she's amassed quite the collection, almost like a pharmacist of the natural world.
I love that you picked up on that.
Yeah.
It suggests a deep respect for the knowledge and power of plants.
Mm-hmm.
These healers didn't just gather herbs based on their medicinal properties, but also their symbolic meanings and associations, crafting mixtures for healing, protection, love spells, even curses.
Wow. So it was about understanding the interconnectedness of the natural world, not just blindly following recipes.
Yes.
There was a system of knowledge at play.
Exactly. And this meticulous attention to detail, this understanding of natural forces, extended to the creation and use of charms and amulets as well.
Right. Earlier, we saw that farmer with the wolf's tooth necklace. There's another image here of a woman wearing a ring with a strange symbol etched into it. Were these simply decorative, or did they hold a deeper meaning?
These objects weren't mere adornments. They were imbued with power, worn for protection, luck, or to attract specific outcomes. Rings, necklaces, bracelets were often inscribed with symbols or words that held magical significance, chosen for their association with protection, love, fertility, and more.
So it wasn't just about picking a pretty trinket.
Oh.
The choice of symbol, the intention behind it, was all part of the magical practice. It was almost like a personal, portable form of magic.
Precisely. And the choice of symbol mattered.
Right.
Astrological signs, religious iconography, even geometric patterns. They all held specific meanings within this intricate language of magic, connecting the wearer to the desired outcome.
Okay, so we've got herbs, charms, specific symbols, like building blocks of a magical recipe. But these woodcuts also depict rituals and gatherings, like that bonfire scene we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
What role did those rituals play in harnessing magical power?
Rituals were a crucial element. They often involved specific gestures, words, and actions performed in a precise sequence, almost like a choreography of magic. These rituals could be conducted at specific times of day, during certain lunar phases, or in locations believed to hold magical energy.
So it wasn't just about the ingredients, it was about the process, the intention, the environment, all working together to create a magical effect.
Exactly. The bonfire scene you mentioned highlights this beautifully.
Yeah.
Fire was often seen as a purifying element, and gatherings like this could be for protection, healing, or celebrating seasonal cycles. The chanting, the hand-holding, all of it suggests a collective effort to harness energy and connect with the supernatural realm.
It's almost like group meditation or a form of prayer, but directed towards a specific magical outcome.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
The power of these rituals was often rooted in the belief and the collective intention of the participants. It was a blend of outward actions and inner focus.
Okay, so they had their herbs, their charms, their rituals, and their grimoires filled with spells and incantations.
It's quite a toolkit.
It's quite a toolkit for a world where magic was a very real possibility.
Yes.
But did these practices actually work? I mean, did people see tangible results?
That's a question that's ultimately impossible to answer definitively.
Okay.
Belief is a powerful force, and in a world where magic was an accepted part of reality, simply believing in the efficacy of a ritual or charm could very well lead to perceived positive outcomes.
It's like the placebo effect, right? If you believe something will work, your mind can influence your experience, even if there's no scientific basis for it.
Exactly. But let's not forget that some of these practices were rooted in practical knowledge as well.
Right.
Herbal remedies, for instance, could have genuine medicinal benefits, regardless of whether they were accompanied by a charm or not.
So while some aspects of magic might have been pure superstition, others were grounded in observation, experience, and a deep understanding of the natural world.
No.
It wasn't just about hocus pocus.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes studying this era so fascinating.
Yeah.
It challenges our modern assumptions about the separation between science and superstition,
Right.
rationality and belief.
Right.
It forces us to consider that the human mind is capable of holding seemingly contradictory ideas and finding meaning in both.
Okay, so we've explored the methods, the materials, the intentionality behind magical practices.
Right.
But let's broaden the scope and talk about the impact of magic on society as a whole.
Right.
How did these beliefs shape social relations, power structures, even cultural expressions in early modern Europe?
You've hit on a crucial point.
Okay.
Magic and superstition weren't confined to individual beliefs.
Right.
They permeated the very fabric of society, influencing everything from personal relationships to political power dynamics.
I imagine things could get complicated on a personal level.
Oh, yeah.
If you suspected your neighbor was using a love charm on your spouse, that could definitely strain relationships.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm picturing a lot of paranoia and suspicion woven into daily interactions.
You're not wrong. Remember, in a world where magic was considered a real force,
Right.
any misfortune could be attributed to malevolent spells or witchcraft.
Right.
This fear, especially in tight-knit communities, could easily breed mistrust and suspicion.
It's like a supernatural layer added to everyday social tensions.
Exactly.
A simple disagreement could escalate into accusations of witchcraft or curses.
Exactly. And those accusations, fueled by fear and gossip,
Yeah.
could have devastating consequences for the accused, leading to social isolation, loss of livelihood, and even violence.
There's a woodcut here that seems to capture that perfectly. It shows a group of women whispering and pointing at another woman who appears ostracized, as if she's been marked as a witch.
Oh, wow.
It's like a scene straight out of The Scarlet Letter,
Yeah.
but with supernatural implications.
That image speaks volumes about the power of belief
Right.
and how quickly it could turn against individuals, especially those who are already marginalized.
Right.
It highlights how belief in magic could be used as a tool of social control, both by individuals and institutions.
So magic wasn't just about seeking personal gain or protection. It could also be used to manipulate and control others, to enforce social norms, and even maintain power structures.
Right.
It seems like even those in power, like monarchs and rulers, might have utilized magic to bolster their authority.
You're absolutely right. Rulers often incorporated symbolism and rituals associated with magic to enhance their authority, claiming divine favor or supernatural abilities to awe and control their subjects.
This woodcut of a king performing a healing ritual is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah.
Surrounded by courtiers, he's touching a sick person, seemingly channeling divine power. It makes you wonder if this was genuine concern or a calculated display of power.
It's difficult to say for certain,
Right.
but such displays could definitely reinforce their image as chosen leaders, especially in a time when people truly believed in the power of kings to heal and intercede with the divine.
It's like a form of political theater, using the language of magic to solidify their rule.
Yes.
And the church, with its claims to divine power and miracles, seems to have been doing something similar.
Exactly. The church claimed a monopoly on divine magic, distinguishing it from the demonic magic practiced by witches and cunning folk.
Right.
This distinction was crucial in maintaining their spiritual authority and control.
So it becomes a battle for control over the supernatural realm,
Yes.
with those in power using magic to legitimize their position
Right.
and suppress those who challenged their authority.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
But remember, magic wasn't just about power and control.
Right.
It also found expression in the cultural realm, shaping art, literature, music, and folklore,
Right.
reflecting the anxieties and aspirations of the era.
It's like magic provided a lens through which people viewed the world, a way to make sense of the mysteries of life, death, and everything in between. Think of Shakespeare's plays like Macbeth and The Tempest, which are filled with witches, spells, and the supernatural.
Right.
Those stories didn't exist in a vacuum. They reflected the beliefs and anxieties of their time.
Those are perfect examples.
Yeah.
Shakespeare masterfully captured the anxieties and fascinations with magic that permeated society.
Right.
But it wasn't just high culture.
Yeah.
Folk tales, ballads, children's rhymes, all were infused with magic, reflecting its pervasive presence in the collective imagination.
So while magic was a source of fear and suspicion, it was also a wellspring of creativity and imagination,
Absolutely.
shaping cultural expressions and providing a way to grapple with the complexities of life.
It's clear that magic was far more than just a set of beliefs or practices.
Right.
It was woven into the very fabric of early modern European society.
Absolutely. It was a way of life, a framework for understanding the world, and a powerful force that shaped individual destinies and collective experiences.
It really was.
This deep dive is really revealing just how multifaceted and pervasive magic was in this era. We've seen how it provided solutions,
Right.
instilled fear,
Yes.
and ultimately shaped society at every level. But as we continue to explore these sources, I'm curious what ultimately led to the decline of magic's influence. Was it just the rise of science and rationality, or were there other factors that contributed to its gradual shift from the center stage of European life to the realm of superstition and folklore?
Well, As we've seen throughout this deep dive, historical shifts are rarely simple or straightforward. Attributing the decline of magic solely to the rise of science would be a vast oversimplification.
Yeah.
While the scientific revolution certainly played a role, it was part of a much broader tapestry of social, cultural, and intellectual transformations that gradually reshaped European thought and belief systems.
So it wasn't just about science like winning over magic.
Right.
There were other forces at play.
Exactly. Remember, even some of the early pioneers of scientific thought, like Isaac Newton, were drawn to the mysteries of alchemy.
Right.
It wasn't a sudden rejection of magic,
Okay.
but a gradual evolution in thinking,
Mm-hmm.
a shift in the way people sought to understand and explain the world around them.
So if it wasn't just this sudden paradigm shift, what were some of the key factors that led to this gradual decline?
Well, one factor we've touched on already is the printing press.
Right.
The ability to disseminate information more widely played a crucial role in challenging traditional hierarchies of knowledge.
Uh-huh.
It democratized access to information, allowing new ideas and perspectives to spread more rapidly, reaching a wider audience than ever before.
It's like the printing press broke the monopoly on knowledge that institutions like the church had held for centuries, opening up new avenues for understanding the world and challenging those old assumptions about magic and the supernatural.
Exactly. And alongside this increased access to information, the development of scientific methodologies offered alternative explanations for natural phenomena that were once attributed to magic.
Right.
Observation, experimentation, and the search for verifiable evidence began to chip away at the foundations of magical thinking, at least among certain segments of society.
But wasn't there also a backlash against magic, a fear of its potential to disrupt the established order?
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking of the witch hunts again,
Right.
which seemed to represent a desperate attempt to control something that was perceived as dangerous and threatening.
You're right. The witch hunts were a horrific manifestation of anxieties surrounding magic.
Right.
It wasn't just about intellectual debate or alternative explanations.
Yeah.
It was about fear, social control, and the need to scapegoat those who were seen as different or threatening.
So it seems that the decline of magic wasn't just about the rise of reason in scientific thought.
Right.
It was also about social anxieties, power dynamics, and a desire to maintain order in a rapidly changing world.
Precisely. It was a complex interplay of factors that gradually eroded the authority and legitimacy of magic. As new ideas spread, alternative explanations emerged, and anxieties about the potential for disruption grew, magic gradually retreated from the center stage of European life to the realm of folklore, superstition, and the occult.
So while remnants of magical beliefs certainly persisted, the era of magic as a dominant force shaping everyday life and societal structures gradually came to an end.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like a slow, fading echo of a once powerful voice.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that these historical shifts were not sudden or absolute. Even today, we see remnants of magical thinking and beliefs woven into our own culture and practices.
It's true. We might not consult grimoires or wear amulets for protection, but those underlying human desires that need to find meaning, to seek control in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, haven't disappeared. They've simply found new expressions.
Absolutely. And perhaps that's the most enduring legacy of this era of magic.
Yeah.
The reminder that the human quest for understanding, for connection, and for agency transcends time and cultural boundaries. It's a quest that continues to shape our world in ways both subtle and profound.
Wow. That's quite a thought.
It is.
We've covered so much ground, from the intricate workings of magic to its broader societal impact and its eventual decline. But I'm curious, before we wrap up this deep dive, is there anything that particularly surprised you about this exploration of magic in early modern Europe? Anything that challenged your assumptions or sparked new curiosities?
You know, what struck me most was the sheer practicality of magic in this era.
Okay.
We often romanticize magic, viewing it through the lens of fantasy and folklore. But these sources revealed a world where magic was less about casting spells and more about actively seeking solutions to everyday problems.
Right. It was about healing the sick, protecting loved ones, ensuring a good harvest, and even navigating the complexities of love and relationships. It was a way of engaging with the world, not escaping from it.
Exactly. It challenged my assumption that past cultures were somehow less rational or more superstitious than we are today. It highlighted the resourcefulness and ingenuity, of people who used whatever tools they had at their disposal to navigate the challenges of their time.
Right.
Magic, in this context, wasn't about ignorance.
Right.
It was a way of knowing, a way of understanding and interacting with the world based on the beliefs and knowledge available to them.
So it's not about judging their beliefs through our modern lens, but about understanding them within their historical and cultural context.
Precisely. It's a reminder that even beliefs and practices that might seem strange or irrational to us can offer valuable insights into the human condition and the enduring quest for meaning and control in an often unpredictable world.
It seems like our journey through the world of early modern magic isn't quite over yet.
I agree.
There are lingering questions, new avenues for exploration, and perhaps even lessons for navigating our own modern world.
Absolutely. Perhaps our next deep dive will take us into the world of modern magic and spirituality, exploring how those same desires for meaning, connection, and agency continue to shape human beliefs and practices today.
Now that's a deep dive I'd love to take. It seems the mysteries of magic, both past and present, are full of surprises. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration.
It was my pleasure. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of magic in early modern Europe. We hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have. Until next time.